So, we're going to be looking at commas. So, commas are the most complex thing that I can teach, basically. So,
Yeah,
they're really quite hard, commas, because there's so many different uses of them. So, for
yeah.
example, in a time phrase, in the meantime, should I use a comma after a time phrase such as in the meantime? Well, that's a good question. Do you think you should use a comma after a time phrase in the meantime?
Um,
Or
I think yesterday there was. I think yeah, you should.
yes, you should. So a time phrase is something that gives details of the time that something happened. It might be a single word or a complete phrase. But some examples of time phrases are tomorrow, at 2 p.m., 500 years ago, and in the meantime. When a time phrase adds information to an independent clause or sentence that follows it, it should be followed by a comma. Yes, yes, well done. If the phrase or sentence comes before the time phrase, then it shouldn't have a comma before it. So let's look at this. And this is where it gets confusing. This is where it gets confusing. Example one, correct. 500 years ago, comma, there were no grammar books. Incorrect. 500 years ago, there were no grammar books. Now, it's incorrect because there's no comma after the time phrase, isn't it? However, if we put the time phrase at the end of the sentence, you don't need a comma.
Yeah, there were no grammar books 500 years ago.
There were no grammar books 500 years ago, no comma. Incorrect. There were no grammar books, comma, 500 years ago. Now that looks wrong to me, but some people, they're not sure where to put commas in because it is so confusing. Because if it goes at the
Yeah,
beginning, there's a comma, but if it goes at the end, there isn't. So this is actually really quite hard, isn't it? It's actually hard.
yeah.
I know it's hard. So,
Mhm.
example two, correct. Yesterday there was no new news. Incorrect. Yesterday, no comma, there was no new news. So it's running straight in. And so it's almost like it's giving you a little pause to think about, okay, yesterday, I've got that. A little pause to get your mind into where it is, isn't it? Because the important bit
Yeah,
of news is there was no new news. That's the important bit of news, isn't it? So incorrect. Yesterday there was no new news. So there's no little pause. See comma as a little tiny rest. Correct. There was no new news yesterday. And so afterwards you don't need a comma after the phrase, the important phrase, because we've got the important phrase. There was no new news yesterday. So the time is sort of less important. So you almost don't need a comma. It just runs into it. Does that make sense? That sort of makes sense to me, but I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Incorrect. There was no new news, comma, yesterday. So again, you don't need that pause.
Because like the comma like adds the structure, like it adds the formation of the whole sentence.
Yeah, it helps you to know where to take a little breath and when something quite big is happening. Helps you, it almost helps to chunk up units of meaning. So
Yeah,
yesterday, comma, last week I lost my car keys. The I lost my car keys is the key idea in that sentence, but the time phrase is telling us when it was. But if you put it, I lost my car keys last week, you don't need that pause. Anyway, in general, the rules around commas and time phrases are as follows. If the time phrase comes before an independent clause or sentence, use a comma after the time phrase. If the time phrase comes after an independent clause or sentence, no comma is necessary. So we've got another example. One, correct. Last week my husband and I went to the movies. Incorrect. Last week my husband and I went to the movies. So the last week my husband and I went to the movies. There's not a comma giving us a little breath, is there?
hmm
Example two, correct. 100 years ago, comma, women in the United States gained the right to vote. Incorrect. 100 years ago, women in the United States gained the right to vote. So you're running straight. 100 years ago, women in the United States gained the right to vote. It's almost like you're stumbling over yourself.
hmm
Example three, correct. The Roman Empire fell centuries ago, so the time phrase is centuries ago. Incorrect. The Roman Empire fell, comma, centuries ago. That's wrong. It should be the Roman Empire fell centuries ago. Correct. I have an appointment at 3 o'clock. Incorrect. I have an appointment at 3 o'clock with a comma.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I have an appointment at 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Yes, that's why you need to read every day a lot. If you read every day, you know that makes no sense, which is why I always say to all my students, the most important thing you can do is to read every day. The Secret Garden, Black Beauty, The Time Machine, 19th century texts, 20th century texts, 21st century texts, a range of them all you need to read. But you certainly need to read things like Black Beauty, Little Women, The Secret Garden, The Little Princess, Huckleberry Finn, all those from the 1800s, because they'll really give you a grasp of complex sentences and complex vocab and complex grammar, basically. Whereas if you read something like David Walliams, have you read David Walliams?
When I was like 3 years ago,
yeah. He's not going to be giving you that same level of subconscious expertise, basically. Okay, so correct. The comma rule also applies to independent clauses that are not their own sentences. Sometimes independent clauses are tied to other clauses. For example, correct. Go to sleep, comma, and tonight, comma, Santa will bring you toys. Correct. Go to sleep, comma, and Santa will bring you toys tonight. Okay. Incorrect. Go to sleep, comma, and tonight Santa will bring you toys. So it's missing a comma there. Incorrect. Go to sleep and Santa will bring you toys, comma, tonight. Yeah. So that's actually quite a complex sentence, isn't it? Go to sleep and tonight Santa will bring you toys. I would actually break that up into short sentences. Go to sleep, full stop, or, exclamation mark. Tonight Santa will bring you toys. But anyway, if you're going to put it into one sentence, that's how to do it. Okay. And then if you look underneath, this is what I really like about this website. Common questions about the comma. Should an introductory phrase be followed by a comma? When should you use a comma before a coordinating conjunction? How do I add commas to a number for clarity? What is a comma splice? Do I need a comma after a subordinate clause? These are really good questions. And if you go down, you can see, if you read down, that actually a comma is an incredibly complex thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are. So this is, I think I might do a series of videos on commas. So this is the first one on time phrases. But actually, I think we might do ones on participle phrases and prepositional phrases and opening quotation marks and before which. So all of those is when you've actually got a real question about the comma, which we all have, to be honest, because it's not easy to know where to put a comma. This website, Pro Writing Aid, I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be useful, this?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I think so too.